shade of the olive trees growing on the pastoral farm of Los Gallindos and the shadows of the swaying wheat and tall sunflowers might give most anyone a false sense of security. Located 3 kilometers northwest of the small town of Prada Civil in Spain, this picturesque property of Los Gallindos was one of many working farms in the area, and by far the largest. But hidden beneath the beauty lays a gruesome tale of betrayal and murder. Nestled in Andalusia, an autonomous community located on the southern border of Spain, the farm of Los Gallindos spanned almost 1,000 acres. Nearly 400 hectares large, the land and its many bustling buildings were owned by the Marquis of Granina. The farm employed a number of workers who lived in smaller houses attached to the main house. These close-knit workers were responsible for carrying out the day-to-day tasks of the 5 farmhouses on the property. On July 22, 1975, under the blazing summer sun, after a grueling day of working in the fields, the workers returned to the farmhouse. Upon their return, their utter exhaustion gave way to abject horror when they stumbled upon a grisly sight. Walking into the farmhouse, they came upon the bodies of the foreman's wife, Juana Martin, the tractor driver, Jose Gonzalez Jimenez, his wife, Ascension Peralta Montero, and another substitute tractor driver, Ramon Perilla Gonzalez. 47 years have passed, but the mysterious murders at Los Gallindos remain unsolved. In the 20th century, Los Gallindos was a farmhouse located about 3 kilometers from Parades, a small town of about 8,000 inhabitants, which was 57 kilometers from the city of Seville. The farmhouse was blessed with a good harvest of wheat, barley, sunflowers, and olives. In 1950, Francisco Delgado Duran decided to buy the 400-hectare farmhouse. However, Francisco died on February 19, 1969, in a car accident in Portugal, and the Los Gallindos was inherited by his sister. Francisco's sister would later marry the Marquis of Granina, Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba. The Los Gallindos was then passed on to Fernandez through his wife. Fernandez would hire his 59-year-old friend, Manuel Zapata, as the foreman of the farmhouse. Zapata, along with his wife, Juana Martin, managed the farmhouse and its operations. There were many people working on the farmhouse, which included temporary laborers, permanent farmhands, and tractor drivers. The farm consisted of a main house for the Marquis, a smaller house for the foreman and his wife, and 2 sheds for storing tools and machines. On July 22, 1975, it was one of the hottest summer days on record, with temperatures well over 100 degrees, even in the shade. At around 12 p.m., 27-year-old tractor driver Jose Gonzalez told the errand boy, 36-year-old Antonio Finette, that Zapata had asked him to go to the olive grove and help the farm workers remove weeds. Antonio found it strange, as removing weeds was not in his job description. His job was to run errands and deliver food to the workers who were working in the field. Moreover, Antonio had been working at the farm for many years, and Zapata would always personally give the orders to him. But Antonio did not think much of it at the time, and left for the Olive Garden, which was about 1.5 kilometers, a little under a mile, from the farmhouse on his motorcycle. Jose also told the other tractor driver, 40-year-old Ramon Parida, that Zapata had asked him to go to the Las Hermanas spring, located 4 kilometers, a little under 2.5 miles, from the farmhouse, and bring fresh water for the farm. Around 4:30 p.m., Antonio finished his work at the olive grove and was heading back towards the farmhouse. While on his way, he noticed a column of black smoke rising from the farmhouse. Thinking that the pile of haystack kept at the farm was on fire, Antonio rushed over. Upon arriving at the house, he parked his motorcycle and noticed that the haystack that was kept in one of the sheds was indeed on fire. He called out for Zapata but could not find him anywhere. He looked around for his wife, Juana, and the tractor driver, Jose, but no one appeared to be at the farmhouse, which he found suspicious. He then made his way towards the haystack and smelled what appeared to be diesel mixed with burning tools and another smell which he could not recognize, but which was very unpleasant. He then made his way towards Zapata's house, and at the entrance of the home he noticed a trail of blood leading away from the door. He knocked on the door, but no one answered. Realizing something was terribly wrong, Antonio got on his motorcycle and rode to the nearest civil guard station to notify them. Corporal Raul Fernandez was the first to arrive at the scene. Several farm workers were already at the scene and were trying to put out the fire. Raul then began to investigate the trail of blood and noticed that another trail of blood was coming from the shed, crossing the small patio, and ended next to Zapata's front door. Raul tried to open the door, but it was locked from the inside. The officers then forced the door open and entered the home. Almost immediately, Zapata's dog came running out from inside the house. The dog had blood splatters all over her body, but was otherwise unharmed. Upon entering the house, they came across a large pool of blood on the floor, leading from the entrance to the corridor. The blood was smeared on the floor in a way that suggested that someone had dragged a body. They followed the trail, which led them to the couple's bedroom door at the back of the house. However, the door was locked with a heavy padlock. Raul took out his pistol and shot the lock 3 times. Inside the bedroom, the officers witnessed a horrifying sight. Zapata's wife, Juana, was found lying between 2 beds in a pool of blood. Her face had been completely disfigured. She had been mercilessly beaten on the face with an iron rod taken from the baler. The murder weapon was found next to her. The house was searched, but nothing else would be found. Meanwhile, the workers and officers were able to control the fire at the shed. Soon, they realized that there was something else in the fire, other than just hay. The officers pulled out the remains of 2 charred bodies. One body had a severed leg, while the other had a severed head. Many workers speculated that it could be the bodies of Jose Gonzalez and his wife, Ascension Peralta. Jose was seen driving his SEAT 600 towards his home at around 3:15 p.m. that day. A few minutes later, he was seen again driving it towards Los Calientos, but this time his wife Ascension Peralta was in the passenger seat. However, until an autopsy could be performed, police were not certain of the identities of the body. An autopsy later confirmed the bodies did belong to Jose Gonzalez and his wife. Both had died from blunt force trauma to the head. While investigating the crime scene, an officer noticed another faint trail of blood, this one leading to the driveway of the farmhouse. The officer followed the trail towards a pile of hay next to the driveway. While rummaging through the pile, the officer soon found the body of Ramon Padilla. He had died from a shotgun blast to the chest. He had apparently tried to shield himself with his bare hands. As a result, his hands were completely shattered. Police also inspected Jose Gonzalez's car, which was parked in front of the main gate, and Zapata's shotgun, which was broken into 2 pieces, was found on the back seat of Gonzalez's car. However, Manuel Zapata was nowhere to be found. The police searched inside as well as outside the farmhouse, but did not find anything. Rumors started to circulate that the missing foreman, Zapata, had had an argument with his wife and in a fit of rage had killed her with an iron rod from the baler. Gossip spread that he possibly had then killed the remaining witnesses and fled the scene. At first, police too believed that the manager had killed the workers and was now on the run. The next day, police issued an arrest warrant for Manuel Zapata. As soon as the news of the murders hit the newspapers, journalists and the general public flocked to the scene. The local police were inexperienced and untrained in murder cases, As a result, the crime scene was not cordoned off or secured, and the farm workers, general public, and journalists had trampled all over what remained. The murder weapon was even touched and moved. It was only after 24 hours that the police from Seville arrived, and the crime scene was officially cordoned off. The police interviewed the farm workers, as well as local citizens, but no one had seen anything suspicious. However, the mystery would deepen when the foreman, Manuel Zapata, would also be found dead 3 days later. 3 days after the initial murders, on July 25, 1975, as the investigation continued and authorities were still searching and collecting evidence, they stumbled upon yet another ghastly scene. Police were gathered around the farmhouse when Manuel Zapata's dog began barking repeatedly next to a tree beside a wall located at the back of the farmhouse. An officer checked it out, and to the shock and horror of everyone present at the scene, Manuel Zapata's body was found under a pile of hay in an advanced state of decay. An autopsy later revealed that Zapata was also killed by blunt force trauma to his head. He also had 3 small holes on his back, most likely from a pitchfork. But more importantly, the autopsy revealed that Zapata was the first one to have been killed. That meant Zapata could not have killed the rest of the people and then killed himself, as previously surmised. But what troubled the investigators even more was the fact that the area had already been previously checked thoroughly. In fact, an officer swore that he had even urinated on the very tree next to where the body was found and said he did not see anything there at the time. The most suspicious circumstance surrounding the deaths was the fact that the Marquis of Granina, Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba, and his property manager, Antonio Gutierrez Martin, visited the Los Galiendos and were allowed to stay at the farmhouse on the night of the murders, even though the crime scene was still under investigation. The Marquis rarely ever visited the farmhouse, let alone stayed the night, while the property manager only visited on weekends and never stayed at the farmhouse. Both the Marquis and the property manager were questioned by police. Prior to the murders, the farm workers had reported seeing the property manager, Antonio Gutierrez Martin, at the farm looking for Zapata. He was seen driving his Mercedes 250, which belonged to the Marquis. Antonio told investigators that he indeed had come to the farm on the 22nd, but said that he had been there because he had brought some watermelons from one of the other Marquis' farms to the workers, as he did not want them to go to waste. He said he spoke to Juana Martin and Jose Gonzalez, but did not see Zapata anywhere. He said he left before 12 p.m. When asked why he was driving the Marquis' car, he said that he had given the car to him because the car needed some maintenance, and the Marquis had to go to a funeral on the 21st, so Antonio said that he gave his car, a Renault 4L, to the Marquis for the day so that he could attend the funeral. The Marquis told investigators that he went to the funeral and left for Los Galiendos after learning about the murders. He said he stayed at the farmhouse because he had no one to look after the farmhouse. For several weeks, police investigated the case, but with contaminated evidence and a crime scene that was not secured after the initial onslaught, it was becoming a very challenging task. With public and media pressure to find the killer, within a month, the police would announce that Jose Gonzalez was the murderer. A few years prior, Manuel Zapata's daughter had stayed at the property of Los Galiendos farm. Reportedly, Gonzalez had fallen in love with her. But rumor had it that Zapata did not approve of him, and he later sent his daughter away to Barcelona. She later married another man. Reportedly, Gonzalez was quite hurt by this turn of events, but would later move on emotionally. Gonzalez would later marry Asuncion Peralta Montero in December of 1974, but police theorized that he may have still held resentment towards Zapata and his wife. Police theorized that at around 1 p.m. on July 22nd, Gonzalez may have been working in the shed on the baler, which had been broken for some time, when Zapata came in and may have reprimanded him for taking too long to fix the baler. Investigators theorize that all of the pent-up anger and resentment over the failed relationship finally took over Gonzalez, and they say he may have hit the foreman in the head with an iron rod from the baler, knocking him unconscious. Detectives then theorize that Gonzalez may have repeatedly hit Zapata in the head, which resulted in his death. Investigators think that he may have dragged Zapata's bodies to the back of the farm and hid it under the hay where it was later found. They think that he may have then walked to the foreman's house and killed Juana with the same iron rod. Police wonder if Gonzalez immediately went to the shed after, and when Ramon Perilla came back from his work to the farm, he may have called out for Zapata but did not hear anything. Detectives theorize that Ramon Perilla then went to the shed, but upon opening the door, he may have found Gonzalez standing there, pointing a shotgun directly at him. They say Perilla probably tried to shield himself from the shotgun with his arms, and as a result, his arms were severely injured. In pain, detectives wonder if Perilla had then run for his life towards the foreman's house, knocking and screaming at the door. But possibly realizing too late that no one was home, he may have run towards the main gate. They say that Gonzalez may have caught up with him and shot him in the chest. The arresting affidavit stated that Gonzalez, upon realizing the horrific nature of the crimes he had just committed, thought that he needed an alibi to hide his guilt. And who better a victim to throw off the police's tracks than his own wife? He then put the shotgun in the backseat of the car, investigators say, and drove to his home. Detectives theorize that he may have told his wife that Juana had been in an accident and asked her to assist her in her injuries. The officers say he then took her to the farm, but after finding out about the murders, the couple may have had an argument, in which Gonzalez then probably murdered his own wife as well. Police believe that Gonzalez dragged his wife's body to the shed and doused it with gasoline and then set it on fire. Gonzalez then probably accidentally caught on fire himself, or may have committed suicide by dousing his own body in gasoline and setting himself on fire. When Gonzalez's body was found, he had on his waist a cartridge belt with 16-gauge cartridges. Police believe he may have taken from these bullets to shoot Perilla. The case was closed by the Marchena court, naming the deceased Gonzalez as the killer, without any further evidence besides the circumstantial findings detailed in the officer's statement. However, Gonzalez's family does not believe this theory. They say Gonzalez was a morally upstanding man, and that it would not be in his nature to commit such acts. They also point out that his wife was pregnant at the time, and they had no problems in their marriage. It did not make sense that Gonzalez would wake up one day, they say, and decide to kill everyone. Moreover, the most clear scientific evidence surrounding the innocence of Gonzalez lays in the fact that he died from blunt force trauma to the head. If he was killed in a manner from such an injury, it is almost an impossibility that he committed suicide. For years, the official explanation raised many doubts, but it was still the only possible explanation, government officials said, which was provided by the police and published in the media. As a result, Gonzalez's family was often harassed by locals and viewed as pariahs. Then, in January of 1981, the case would be reopened after a new judge took over the Marchena court. The judge was not convinced by the explanation given by police. The judge read the 600-page report on the case and saw some oddities. First was Finette, who was the first person to arrive on the scene. He had been questioned by police numerous times and maintained that he did not see anyone at the crime scene. However, when a journalist wanted to interview him, Finette later refused, stating that the lieutenant colonel of the Civil Guard had forbidden him to talk about the murders to anyone. Moreover, while investigating Finette, police had found that he had received 500,000 pesetas. This had been distributed to his bank account a few days after the murders. Finette at first claimed that the money he received was from an inheritance. He later changed his story and said that he had actually gotten it from his brother, who was working abroad setting up a bar in town. He would again go on to change his statement numerous times, and later said it was from his savings account. He was questioned in 1981, but maintained both his innocence and the fact that he did not see anyone at the crime scene. The second oddity the judge pointed out was that the then mayor of Paradas had received a letter written in February of 1976. The person who wrote the letter claimed that his name was Juan and that he had been hired to kill Manuel Zapata. Juan had then attached a train ticket from 1975 to Zaragoza. He said that he used this to escape. He claims that he wrote the letters because he did not want an innocent man, Jose Gonzalez, to be blamed for the murders. Juan said that he was very sorry for what he had done and that he deserved to be hanged for it. In the letter, he stated that he was paid 10,000 pesetas to kill only Manuel Zapata. He claimed that after reaching the farmhouse, he hesitated in killing Zapata, so the person who hired him instead killed Zapata. Juan then claimed that he was forced by this person to kill Juana Martin. He said after killing her, he helped the other person carry her body to the bedroom, where she was later found. He said Parilla was killed because he arrived early and they did not want to leave any witnesses. He claims that the person he was with had asked Gonzalez to go to town and to bring his wife with him under the pretense of Juana having had an accident and needing some sort of aid. Once the couple arrived and entered the foreman's house, however, both were killed. But there were some inconsistencies in the letter. Juan claimed that Gonzalez and his wife were killed by shotgun, but the autopsy report showed they were killed by blunt force trauma to the head. The police managed to find the post office from where the letter was sent, but nothing came of it. Even though there were some inconsistencies, the letter allowed the judge to reopen the case and conduct a second autopsy. The judge asked Dr. Luis Frontela to conduct the autopsy. Frontela was a reputed forensic expert and was well known for his forensic work in the Alcazar girls' murder. On January 27, 1983, all the bodies were exhumed and Frontela went to work. It took 4 days to complete the autopsies. Frontela's autopsy reports revealed that Gonzalez was not the killer, but instead a victim. He stated that Gonzalez had died from blunt force trauma to the head and not from suicide. Frontela stated that after Gonzalez died, his arms and legs had been severed from the torso. The killer had done this in order to burn the body faster. It is unknown how this glaring error was not found upon the initial autopsy. Frontela also wrote in his report that he found a piece of lead about 3 millimeters in Gonzalez's body. Frontela stated that it was very possible Gonzalez did not have a cartridge belt on him before the murder. The doctor claims it was most likely placed on him after his death. It is also possible, the doctor stated, that the lead inside his body did not come from a shotgun shell, but from the cartridges that were placed upon his body overheating and firing the pellets within his body. In the report, Frontela stated that at least 2 people must have been involved in the killings. One of them must have been tall and strong, while the other may have been smaller and weaker. Manuel Zapata was indeed the first victim, he said. He was hit with a blunt object in the head from behind by the larger man. The doctor says that he was later pricked with a pitchfork while he lay on the ground. Juana Martin was the next victim and was killed by an iron rod from the baler found in the home. He believes that the smaller person probably killed her, as Juana had received many hits to the head, suggesting that the killer had to inflict multiple blows, as he lacked the physical strength to kill her with just 1 or 2 hits. The doctor theorizes that the killer then dragged her body to the larger man, who came to help her move the body to the bedroom after killing Zapata himself. The report details that there were 2 iron rods found inside the house. The one that was found next to Juana was actually used to kill Manuel Zapata, while the other that was used to kill Juana was found in another room. Asuncion, Gonzalez's wife, was probably killed inside the house, as police found blood on the bed next to Juana's body that did not belong to either Juana or Zapata. She also had cuts on her body, and her head had been severed, most likely in order to burn her body faster. Frontela could not determine where Gonzalez was killed, but said that he was most likely killed by the same weapon used to kill his wife. The doctor theorizes that the killer then proceeded to mutilate their bodies in the shed in order to burn them faster, but were interrupted by Perila's voice calling for Zapata. After not hearing from anyone, Perila decided to check the shed. The doctor says it was then that he was shot immediately. The first shot injured his hands severely. He ran towards the foreman's house, but it was locked. He then ran towards the main gate, but was caught and shot in the chest. Perila was the last victim, and after that, the doctor said the killers left in a hurry after setting Gonzalez and his wife on fire. In 1986, a woman came forward and told the police that her husband had told her on his deathbed that he had seen a man running away from the direction of Los Galiendos on the day of the murders. The man was known in Paradas by his nickname and had been wearing a military uniform which had bloodstains on it. On his deathbed, this man confessed that he also noticed that the man he saw was carrying a large roll of cash and was mumbling, quote, "So much blood, so much death, only for this?" The man referenced was later arrested and investigated, but denied knowing anything about the murders. With no actual evidence linking him to the crime, he was released shortly after. In 1978, an author by the name of Alfonso Grosso published a book entitled Los Invitados, in which he theorized that Los Galiendos was involved in growing and distributing marijuana to a Moroccan criminal organization, and that all 5 victims had known about it. He suggested that they were killed after having an argument with the Moroccan criminal regarding the marijuana grow. Authorities considered the possibility, but a search of the farm found no traces that cannabis had been grown. The other theory was provided by the Marquis himself. He said that just before the murders, he had allowed a few members of a legion to stay at the Los Galiendos farmhouse for a night. He said that one of the legion members may have had a stash of drugs with him, which he may have forgotten at the farmhouse. He says that the members left for the Sueta the next day, but he believes they could have returned to get the stash back, but might have not been able to find it. He believes that Gonzalez had probably found it and kept it to show Zapata. Upon returning to the farmhouse, he wonders if they'd asked Gonzalez to return the drug stash to them, but he refused. Meanwhile, the foreman Zapata arrived to find the members harassing Gonzalez regarding the drugs. An argument may have broken out between the members and Zapata. The members may have hit Zapata in the head and asked Gonzalez to go to his home and bring back the drugs. He wonders if Gonzalez for some reason brought Ascension back with him, and the members then killed them and the other victims in order to leave no witnesses. The police investigated this and found that while members of the Legion had stayed the night at Los Galiendos, all the members had returned back to Ceuta a few days before the murders. Over the years, there have been several other theories, but none were ever confirmed. The last theory put forward was that the Marquis and the property manager themselves were involved in something very shady at the farmhouse. Zapata found out about it and may have decided to tell the old owner, the Marquis' wife. The Marquis may have then hired a hitman to kill Zapata, and after arriving at the farmhouse, after a heated argument, Zapata may have been killed. They then killed the other victims to leave no witnesses. There have been no official suspects in the case, and it has remained unsolved for more than 42 years.